Hey, Pashi.
Hey, Sufi.
This is very exciting. We're going to do a listener episode. It's a bonus episode.
It's always a bonus when we get to hear from the listeners.
Well said.
Yeah.
And it's very Thanksgiving themed. And Thanksgiving, I believe, is over. What day is Thanksgiving this year?
It's the 28th, so I think this might come out the day before
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. But I do want to start with something I'm already thankful for. The result of the Steeler game on our trip to Pittsburgh.
Oh, so thankful. Like, it was nerve-wracking, but all you need at the end of the day is a W.
We had one of the best weekends with mom and dad possible.
Yeah, the weather was fantastic in Pittsburgh. Our events, our sort of company that we kept was great.
Mom had an issue with the rental car Dad got.
Yeah. Well, she had an issue because Dad wanted an SUV, which Mom also says that's unnecessary to have an SUV. And she said, why wouldn't anyone just get a sedan?
Yeah, she's very pro sedan now.
Yeah.
She even said, guess what car I want next. She literally said, what's my dream car? And she said it was 5 letters.
Mm-hmm.
What was I said Volvo.
You said Volvo, you said Miata.
Miata. And then it turned out her 5-letter dream car was sedan.
Yeah, because it keeps us all together. It's not a lot of extra room.
But it was so funny. I was saying literally no one has ever said their dream car is a sedan.
Well, so Dad requested, an SUV, and it was one of those things of like, just go to the space, your car's there. Like, you don't even have to interact with someone, keys in the car, good to go. And it was a minivan with those sort of 2 sliding doors in the back so you could get in on either side. And before you got there, Mom always sort of insists that I take the front seat. I try to defer and give it to her, but she says, no, sit up there.
You're a tall fella.
I'm taller than her. So I sit up front and Mom's in the back, and then I hear her just sort of mumbling. She's like, oh yeah, he knows where he's going. Don't worry. But it's too quiet and it's not. And I'm like, who are you talking to? She's like, oh, just all my friends back here. There's so much room. There's all these people back here. So Mom was talking to imaginary.
It was a very funny bit. And then every time her and I got into the back seat, because by the way, she never insists I sit in the front seat.
No.
It's always you. Like you're a foot taller than me.
No, but that's so she can have time with you back there.
That's very nice. But every time she got in, she would turn around and say to the row that no one was sitting, "Are you guys okay back there? All right, buckle up." It was a very funny,
good bit.
I like that Mom is doing like alt comedy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You and Dad. Oh well, we did a rebuttal episode, so maybe Dad will want to rebut this next year. I have a observation about the way Dad drives. So. You were sort of in charge of navigation.
Uh-huh.
So you would enter it. There was a big screen on this minivan where it would show a map of exactly where Dad was supposed to go.
Right, because I linked my phone and I would enter the address of where we were going.
It seemed as though he paid no attention to this map.
He did not.
It's very funny because he would ask you to enter the address, you would enter the address. Yeah. A giant map would come up, and then he would just sort of wing it. Or I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah, well, he was going the way that he knew.
Right,
and when
it's his hometown.
Yeah, and so he knows, in general, how to get places. So I sort of was not calling him out on not taking the directions, and it was only when we were in that last sort of quarter mile, where I felt like the map was very important. But he would blow through all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a weird, because I could tell you were sort of caught in between because you didn't want to sort of shotgun drive the car. But he would be going real fast, and I think everyone, because it was a giant screen, all of us could see a turn was upcoming, and it seemed as though he had no awareness of it or intention of taking it.
Yeah.
Now, I should also note, I don't think Dad's last 50 years of driving have been a party, because I think a lot of those years he's had Mom in the car with him. And just lest Dad thinks this is an unbalanced criticism of just him, will you make the noise mom makes if dad so much as taps the brakes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just, yeah. I imagine, like, for him, almost, it seems like death has to be bearing down on him to even want to hit the brakes.
Yeah. And Dad made an incredible driving move, getting out of the parking lot at the football game. It was just like, it took ages to just get out of the parking lot. And when we did, we could have gone right, and then we were going to be in traffic for a significantly longer amount of time, or he was going to have to cross this sort of lane of stop-dead traffic into another lane of stop-dead traffic that was going left, which was where we wanted to go. And he just sort of like, he timed it right with the light that was maybe great. 150 feet to the left, so that, you know, the left going lane that we wanted to get into moved to open up for him. And when he made that move, Mom screamed. She was like, I thought that guy was going to hit us, and the guy that was going to hit us had not moved an inch.
Yeah. And it was, the signs were marked. I believe Dad made an illegal half an hour time-saving turn, which was outstanding. Also, I did try to, because I think you and I both acknowledged that it was a A-plus driving move, and, you know, Mom had her reaction. I said, no, we have to give credit to Dad. That was an incredible move. And as I said it, I watched it go in one of Mom's ears and then just like right out the other. It's amazing how she hears everything we say except praise for Dad.
Yeah. But yeah, fantastic trip and Steeler victory.
Yeah.
So yeah, hard to beat that from where we're sitting.
It's great. And now let's get started with our listeners. Sam, we hear you have some surprises for us.
I do. So our first surprise is not really a story and not a question. It's actually a follow-up from Joe. You guys had some questions for him from the Hermit Crab beauty pageant.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
We also have a photo that he sent in. So I'm going to drop that in the chat for you guys to see. We'll put it up on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
But let's hear from Joe.
Hey, this is Joe from Playa del Rey, California. I'm the guy who told the story about my family vacation on the Jersey Shore in the 80s, where my mom forced my sisters to wear handmade gowns to a beauty pageant that ended up being for hermit crabs. While on the same day, my hermit crabs, Spuds MacKenzie and Checkers, competed in a hermit crab race. Big fan of both of yours, so it meant a lot that it was actually on the podcast and that you guys enjoyed it. You asked me to reach out to clarify some things, so here we go. There was in fact a hermit crab race as well as a beauty pageant. This dual event takes place every year in Ocean City, New Jersey, and is still going strong. And to clarify, kids dress up their hermit crabs to compete in the pageant, and I believe some of them now actually wear outfits to match their crab. I'd like to think my mom started that trend, because from what I can remember, my sisters were definitely the only ones in gowns on the beach that day. Also, the pageant takes place first, then the race. Not sure if there's anything in the rules that says your hermit crab can't compete in both. I'd imagine you'd be right up there with Springsteen and Tate Donovan as New Jersey royalty if your crab took home the Double Crown. As for who won the pageant, I wouldn't know. I was a selfish little man solely focused on winning a goddamn crab race. Seth, you want to know how much I paid for my hermit crabs? I believe Spuds was $1 because he was tiny, and Checkers was 4 times his size, so if I'm doing boardwalk math, the guy with the peach fuzz stash and rat tail probably charged my parents $25 fazul. And Josh, you brought up a good point. Yes, you can just find them on the beach, but it's Jersey, and of course they found a way to monetize hermit crabs. They make you pay to sit on sand. Also, quick self-correction segment. This story took place in 1987, not 1986. Spuds MacKenzie, the original Bud Light party animal, and for whom my little hermit crab was named, didn't take over the world until 1987. Thanks again. Love the show. Truly honored you chose the story, and it's forever enshrined in a Josh song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe and the crabs, and we're getting a picture. Oh, my God. Look at Joe with his ribbon and everything. Fantastic.
Winner. Winner, hermit crab dinner.
Yeah, I feel as though it's almost like mobbed up and you're not allowed to buy a non-kissed in crab. You know what I mean? You can't find a crab. It's like, oh, you got to know a guy who knows a crab.
I'd like to think that Spuds MacKenzie was named after Joe's crab. And
right,
so, that
maybe it was 1986.
Maybe it was 86. And there someone was, there.
Yeah, a Budweiser marketing guy was like, what are we going to call this dog?
Like, I love this crab.
Mike Scollin's a writer on our show. posted something on Instagram about these Spud MacKenzie mugs, Halloween mugs that came out back in the day, and how he'd always wanted one. And again, he just posted it on social media. And I went on eBay, and sure enough, you could buy 4 of the bugs.
Oh,
The mugs. Not for much, by the way.
Yeah.
So I just bought him and just left him on his desk, no note. Then like 3 weeks later, I'm like, did you have no curiosity as who the mugs were from? He's like, oh, thanks, man.
That, a couple, Mackenzie and I will get gifts sometimes. Like a couple
Spuds
years.
MacKenzie?
No. We got like an annual pass to the national parks that was like sent, and we asked around, and nobody. That someone sent us a blanket recently.
Oh.
And it was like no note or anything.
I feel like I sent you a blanket.
No, we actually figured it out, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Oh.
It
What,
was,
did I send you the pass?
Well, I don't know. I asked you. I gave you the hat. It was like a Pendleton hat. If anyone ever sent it to me.
Did anybody ever call Mackenzie Spuds?
I don't know.
Yeah. She might be too young.
Must have. Yeah, but she was like, she would have been 3 or 4. So, yeah, I feel like people must have called her Spuds.
We were with some younger people at a dinner in Pittsburgh, and I was having a real crisis of self based on how many people they had never heard of, just based on being younger.
Oh, yeah. That'll happen. It was Hugh Grant. You were asking them, do you guys know Hugh
And they were
Grant?
like, oh, I know. Of course. They go, of course I know Hugh Grant. Greatest show on earth. And I'm like, that's Hugh Jackman. And they're like, oh, I don't think I know Hugh Grant. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No, it should be noted when they saw a photo, they did.
There's a golf course in Los Angeles, Roosevelt in Griffith Park. It's a little par 3 course. And my buddy Clay, every time we get to this one tee, he always points down the hill and he said, that used to be Kirstie Alley's house. And it drives me crazy because he says it all the time. And then I was playing with another friend of mine and this just random dude. And the random dude, when we get to that tee, is like, that used to be Kirstie Alley's house. And I was like, oh. And there were 2 other younger guys playing. And they were like, who's Kirstie Alley? And I was like, from Cheers? And they were like, oh, old show. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. But great show.
Great show.
Yeah.
Just had Ted Danson on last night, speaking of.
Yeah. I just bumped into Ted Danson last time I was on Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Small world.
He's got a podcast now, too. Not to cross-promote, but
yeah,
everybody knows your name with him and Woody Harrelson sometimes. It turns out that, unlike you, Posh, Woody Harrelson doesn't show up every week.
Yeah, true story.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe.
Great to hear from you again, Joe. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
And part of me wants to figure out a time to go to Ocean City. I mean, I guess I'll know when the time is. It's whenever this competition is. But I would love to be there for the race.
You know what? And I'm just gonna pay it forward, and I'm gonna ask Joe one more question to see if we can get one of these for the next one. Is Spuds MacKenzie the crab still alive?
All right. Excellent work.
Hey, we're gonna take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. Support for family trips comes from Airbnb. Hey, Baji.
Yes, Sufi.
We got our Pittsburgh trip coming up.
We do. I'm fired up. And one of the reasons I'm fired up is because once again, we have booked an awesome Airbnb and we're just going to be hanging out in one of Dad's old neighborhoods, Dad's old stomping grounds.
Look, we used to stay at hotels. It was great. No complaints about it. But this is something special because we're a family, and I feel like last year at our Airbnb, it felt like the way we were a family when we were growing up. We would all just meet downstairs. We would get some bagels from a local place down the street, brew some coffee, and we were just ready to face the day.
Yeah, and if if we're out and about and we get home, you might want to just throw on the TV and see if there's a game on or play some Scrabble, play a board game, and just be in that shared space and be together, be in a home away from home.
And being in a living room with mom and dad is very special, especially not their living room, which is covered in dog dander and gives me an allergic reaction. Some trips are better in an Airbnb when you're traveling with a group of friends. Maybe you're traveling with a large family or an extended family. When you're looking for an authentic or local experience, book your next awesome trip today at Airbnb.com.
Support for family trips comes from Public Rec. Let's be real, guys. Wearing nice pants can be a real drag. Who decided that stiff, uncomfortable fabric squeezing your business was the key to looking sharp? Well, here's an early holiday gift from me to you. Those days are finally over. Public Rec's Daymaker pants are here to make sure you stay comfy and classy this season. Usually, when you order comfortable pants, you only get to pick from small, medium, large, and extra large sizes. With Daymaker pants, you get to select the exact width and length you need. They feel like your favorite sweats, but look like tailored pants. Yep, super stretchy with an elastic waistband so you can rock them anywhere. Give the gift of comfort to yourself or someone you love this holiday season with Public Rec's Daymaker pants. And for a limited time, you can get 20% off your entire order with code TRIPS at publicrec.com. That's 20% off when you use promo code TRIPS at publicrec.com. Here we go. What's next, Sam?
All right, now we have some listener stories.
Great.
So I'm going to play the first one.
Hi, I want to share with you a memory from the early 80s when I was a young child. It was Thanksgiving Day. My mom had been in the hospital for over a week with severe back pain and immobility. And for some reason, our family was hosting Thanksgiving dinner with a house full of relatives, despite my mom not being there. And the hospital decided to release her on Thanksgiving Day. She still couldn't move, and they put her in the back of our station wagon at the hospital so she could be laying down while driving her home. And when we got to our house, all my dad and my uncles put my mom on the picnic table to carry her from the car into our house. And I remember feeling some embarrassment as a kid, wondering if the neighbors might think we were going to eat my mom for Thanksgiving. Anyway, I asked my mom today to verify this story to make sure it wasn't a false memory, but she verified it's true. We did do that. Love the show. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Oh my God. Now I'm just bummed they didn't do more turkey dressing stuff to the mom when they brought her in.
Oh, yeah. Just like surrounded her with like autumnal leaves and
What are those little, like, they look like chef hats that they put on the ends of the...
Oh, yeah. The turkey legs or what?
Yeah, the turkey legs. They had to put those on her feet. Oh, my God. And just basted her. That'd be great. Just keep you. Is the oven ready? Are you guys ready for her?
I was almost hoping that her mother had known that her house was going to be full of people and she had to do Thanksgiving dinner and then just faked it all. And did a week in the hospital to get out of having to do it, but then maybe got the ultimate comeuppance when they carried her in, Palantine style.
I will say, I love everything about a family that comes up with the plan to bring out the picnic table to get an immobile person to the house.
Yeah, it's also like how there's no way you get a picnic table through the door.
Yeah, well, no, I think what you do is you get them to the door and then you just lift up one end, you just slide her on in.
What an odd makeshift stretcher.
It's also really, I think my favorite part of that story is calling your mom to verify the truth of it. Because that might be a crazy kid's memory that it would have been so funny too if the mom was like, what?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. What a A+ story.
Yeah, and then is she just sort of like propped up for Thanksgiving dinner? Do they? Yeah, I guess.
Right. I mean, it does. Right. Like, where was she the rest of the time? I mean, maybe they met her at the door with a chair.
Yeah. Maybe just put her on the couch, and everyone would call in and be like, "You good, Ma?"
I'll tell you this, buddy. What I wouldn't give to be put on the couch for Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
What I wouldn't give.
It's a pretty good place to be.
Where are you going to be?
I will do, I'm doing a meal in New York City at around noon. and then I'm renting a car. I'm driving up to Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, Mackenzie, my wife's hometown. And then we're going to do a second Thanksgiving on Friday with her dad and stepmom and that whole side of the family. So,
where are you going to have dinner on Thanksgiving Day? Where are you going to have lunch? Sorry, when are you going to have lunch in New York?
Yeah, at one of the boucherie restaurants. These, French bistro kind of places. We did the one in the West Village last year, and it was just lovely. It was done up for Christmas. They have a Thanksgiving menu. No one has to cook. There's really
great. And who are you doing it with?
We're doing it with Mackenzie, Mackenzie's mother, Linda. Andrew and Saskia are our friends who started the theater in Amsterdam, and their two sons, one of whom will be turning 21, Aiden Moskos, as this is recording tomorrow. Aiden turns 21. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow as we're recording.
Tomorrow as this airs.
Great.
Yeah. On Fantastic. The 28th. Aiden Moskos, 21 years old. We
were
there. We were in Amsterdam for Thanksgiving when Aiden was born. And they wanted to induce Saskia's labor on Thanksgiving. And she said, I can't. I'm hosting Thanksgiving. Yeah. Let's do it tomorrow.
And now we have great Aiden.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, let's hear the next story.
Hi, Seth and Josh. My name is Becky. I'm a listener from day one. Thank you so much for the wonderful laughs over the last year. I want to tell you guys about a Thanksgiving from my childhood. I'm 31 now, so this was probably 24 years ago, something like that. And first I need to give you some context, which is that my parents were both super duper hippies growing up. They both lived in their own teepees separately. And then when they moved in together, they moved into a sugar shack which made maple syrup. And my mom's dad, my grandfather, he came from some more wealth and was very shocked by my mom's decision to go this route and make this life choice. And when my family moved into the house that I grew up in, which was a cabin, they asked how much it was going to be to put in electricity. It was going to be $18,000, which was far too much for them. So they decided that we would make do. And I grew up with kerosene lamps for my entire childhood and doing homework with a headlamp on. And the other thing that we did not have was an indoor toilet. We had an outhouse. So it was quite an interesting childhood for sure. I've got crazy stories. My parents were big into adventure, so that includes 7 days on the Everglades living in a canoe and that sort of thing, just so you have a sense of the vibe. Now, on this particular Thanksgiving, we had invited probably 14 family members over to our small cabin in Vermont. And one of those members was my grandfather. And he left to go to the bathroom probably midway through Thanksgiving dinner. And if the weather was not great, it was raining and cold and blustery, but because it was November, all the leaves were down, so it wasn't hard to find the outhouse. Shouldn't have been more than a 7-minute walk. No one really noticed his absence until it was time for pie. And where's Grandpa? Where's Grandpa? You know, we're looking out the door, waiting. Finally, the door bursts open with a big gust of wind, and he's soaking wet and looks like he's been out to sea or something like that. And he pulls my mom aside right away and he says, Lori, I don't care about Tom. He can live without a toilet. But you and Becky, you need a bathroom. You need a toilet. And he gave her the money on the spot for us to have a septic system installed. So while that might have been my grandfather's worst Thanksgiving, it stands out in my memory as the best Thanksgiving ever because it was the Thanksgiving that we all knew we were going to get a toilet. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Oh my God. Thank you, Becky. What a story. By the way, I weirdly, in my head, it was Vermont the whole time.
Yeah.
Until she said Vermont, I realized she hadn't said it yet. Everything about that family screamed Vermont to me.
And Sugar Shack.
Sugar Shack. Also, what you definitely, I guess the day your parents realized they were, a perfect match is when they were like, I live in a teepee. I live in a teepee.
Should we trade up for that Sugar Shack?
God, I wish, I'll assume your grandfather's not still with us, but man, I'd love to hear a story about what happened from when he left the house to go to that outhouse and get back.
Yeah. Also, to say that, it shouldn't have taken more than 7 minutes, is that just to get there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that 7 minutes build in the bowel movement?
Yeah,
so
that's
good.
fun.
It was funny because I sort of write down a few little notes as I'm listening to our listener's story. And as I was listening to Becky describe her childhood, I was like, was she 31 or 131?
Yeah.
It definitely felt like I was reading a story about Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. I bet that was a cool house, man.
I bet it was
cabin.
a cool house. And I bet it was a lot better when they put in the septic. But that...
Yeah. And I bet it was such a cool house, and there's no doubt that Grandpa didn't like going there.
That's a really... I mean, if you already are bummed that you have to go to a cabin for Thanksgiving, and then that moment you're like, and now, where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
You never want the answer to be out yonder. All right, I think we got one more story. These are fantastic.
My name is Lisa. I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, which is right in the middle of the state. At Christmas, my very old paternal grandmother, Nana, would get a ride down to Durham from the western part of the state. And on Christmas Day, we would drive to Rocky Mount in the eastern part of the state, where my maternal grandparents hosted a potluck dinner. The dish my mom was responsible for bringing was oyster casserole, which of course the kids didn't like much, but she thought it was fancy. It drove us all crazy because she always had so much anxiety around the oyster casserole, and most years was not happy with the way it turned out. Too soupy, too salty, etc. That Christmas started like most others, but Mom was in a great mood because she was confident that the oyster casserole had turned out perfectly. We opened our Santa gifts, and then it was time to hit the road for Rocky Mount. Because we were 6 people, we had to split into 2 cars. I drove one car with my dad and sister. I was a teenager, but a responsible driver, and I think my dad was happy for the break. My mom was driving the other car with another sister, and my Nana tucked into the back seat, and of course the oysters safely ensconced in the trunk. I was parked behind my mom, so I had to back out first. I put the car in reverse, but for whatever reason, I glanced back at my mom's car and saw that, holy cow, there's a fire under the back of the car. I freaked out, and in that moment was sure that I was going to watch half my family get blown to bits on Christmas Day. I instinctively honked the horn a few times to try to let them know there was a problem. I guess my mom thought I was being cute because she just honked back. I threw the car into park, and my dad and I leaped out. I ran to my mom's side and was yelling, get out, there's a fire. She and my sister jumped out, but my Nana was still in the back seat, probably asleep already after her second Bloody Mary. My dad started stamping out the flames with his feet and a shovel he'd grabbed from the driveway and yelled to my mom, get Nana out. My mom had a super intense look on her face. She locked eyes briefly with him and said, she'll be fine, but I'm getting the oysters, and proceeded to open the trunk to pull out the oyster casserole. She passed it off to my sister like a rescued baby and finally got back in the car to roll it forward so my dad could stamp out the remaining flames. Finally, after all the fire extinguishing fun, we were on our way. It's a good thing my parents were in separate cars because my dad was understandably pissed after Mom chose to protect the precious oysters over, his mother. As a fortunate aside, due to my Nana's deafness, I don't think she ever really knew what had unfolded. We made it to Rocky Mount, where we had an exciting story to tell, and where, I'm happy to say, the oyster casserole was a triumph. Happy holidays to you both, and Josh, enjoy your first holiday season as a married man.
Oh, that's so lovely. And that is, I'm genuinely very happy that the story ended with the casserole being good. I very much wanted that.
Early on, I expected like one of those cars was like a throw up, like sort of disaster from bad oysters.
Yeah, it could have been a car sickness story.
Yeah,
but it was a happy ending about oyster casserole.
Yeah,
just fantastic.
Also, like, just if a car did the car caught on fire? Yeah,
it sounds like maybe the car caught on fire and they put out the car fire.
And then you just drive that. Then you just keep driving that car that's been on fire.
I will say, if there was a fire in my car and Mom had made Chex Mix, I would get the Chex Mix out before anyone in my family.
Yeah, she makes mean Chex Mix. Oyster casserole. What a unique dish to be your sort of signature that you always bring. And
I was also surprised to hear that oyster casserole was being made in North Carolina. That might be. I thought maybe that's crazy. I mean,
I bet they got oysters there.
Yeah, they clearly do.
Yeah.
It's just not just New England. And I will say, and I know you don't eat oysters, Josh, but get off your soapbox. The thing I would say is that you, on a menu, you usually have New England, northeastern oysters, or sort of, Pacific Northwest oysters. They're never like, would you want our North Carolina? We got new oysters in from North Carolina.
Yeah, well, maybe they are, and you're just not paying attention because you're...
I feel like I pay hyper close attention to my oyster order. I think we have some... thank you for the stories. They're always the best. And I think we have some questions as well from our listeners.
Hello, Meyers Brothers. I think it's a common compulsion for people to want to recreate a trip from their childhood once they have kids and try and capture something. I think, as John Hodgman says, nostalgia is the most toxic impulse. And I think most of these trips would go badly, but I still feel like I should take my kid to Arizona. He should see the Grand Canyon. Sorry, Seth. However, when I was his age, we went to the Grand Canyon and it made no impact on me whatsoever. I don't recall 1 second of it outside of the IMAX movie we watched at the visitor center on the way in, or whatever came before. But we went to see the Brewers spring training. It was great. A lot of good family memories. We went to Sedona. And I feel like overall, this Arizona trip is something that I just feel like, hey, I should do exactly that with my kid now. Is there any trip that you would want to recreate, or maybe a trip that you would want a second crack at with your kids and fix the bad memories that you have from it? Thanks.
Well, I will say one thing that we're planning on doing Thanksgiving is watching, and Mom and Dad are going to join, watching Star Wars for the first time. And I know that's not a trip, but I'm very excited to watch Star Wars with my kids, as well as my parents, who are the people that took me to see it the first time. I think for me, it's not a trip per se, but I'm very excited to bring my kids to Fenway Park for the first time, which was a big deal when we did that. So I think that is definitely on my list for next summer. And then I don't know if there's another one of our trips. I mean, Disney World, which I don't necessarily have that many memories of as a kid.
Yeah.
But I think will be really cool as a parent.
I just want to clarify, you said watching Star Wars for the first time. Your kid's watching Star Wars for the first time. You've seen it.
No, I've never seen it.
Oh.
And it seems like it's a big deal. Is a Wookiee like a dog?
Yeah.
I've seen the trailer. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
It's a dog that walks on two legs.
Okay, gotcha. That's a good idea.
Oh.
I like it. I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah. We had a classic kind of just because Mom got bit by horseflies, but when we went to Molasses Pond in Maine and stayed at a cabin that sounded not totally dissimilar to Becky's cabin growing up. But we were on a lake, on a pond, but it was like, a big pond. But if we could get that cabin again, if we could figure out what that was, I would love to go back there. I have images of that as being just spectacular in my mind, but sort of what stands out is also the outhouse that we had there, and that Mom almost went into anaphylactic shock or whatever it is when you get bit by a bug.
How bummed, do you remember as a kid, like how bummed would you be? How long would you want to wait if Dad had just come out of the outhouse?
I mean, as long as possible.
Like maybe wait till you get home.
Yeah. Or just find some other woods, just woods. Yeah.
After Dad left, it was an out of the question house.
Rebut that.
All right, what do we got next? Great question.
Hey, Seth and Josh. My name is Madison, and I unfortunately live in New Jersey. And while I have many family trip stories of my own, I'm actually here with the story about one of your family trips. So I used to live in Boston, and my fiance and a good friend of mine and I went to go see Seth's stand-up at the Wilbur. It was the night that Amy Schumer opened for him. and we were seated in the balcony. And shortly before showtime, who sits in front of us but your parents? We were so excited. We recognized them right away from your holiday day drinking specials. And I believe you had a curtain time of 7. And at 6:59, your dad got his phone out and opened his texts, watched the time change to 7, and then watched it change to 7:01 and immediately opened his messages and started a new message to Seth, typed out, "You're late," put his finger on the send button. And at that moment, the lights went down and he deleted the message and put his phone on airplane mode. But it is one of my favorite stories because I love how ready he was to call Seth on being punctual. And so I'm curious, is this something, has your dad always been punctual? Is this something characteristic of your dad? It really made our day. So thank you so much for listening. Love the show. Have a great day.
That's a good question. I feel like we're pretty punctual. I will say, let me say something to pat my own back. I am the most punctual stand-up you're ever going to see. If there's ever a delay in one of my shows, I assure you it's just because they don't have the audience fully seated.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about getting it on the road as soon as possible.
Yeah. Also, as someone who has done a show on Broadway, I believe if you've got a 7 o'clock show, curtain is 7:07.
Right.
And you give people a little wiggle room because sometimes there could be, a hang up at the coat check or whatever. And if you get there late to a lot of shows, they hold you, but you do have a little wiggle room. You weren't, it wasn't like you were Madonna starting your tour at the Barclays Center and had an 8 o'clock show and went on at 11:30. 1 minute. Yeah.
I bet that was a little bit Dad trying to be funny too.
Yeah.
I want to give him credit for that.
But also that he deleted it.
Yeah.
He backed off. That's something he's not going to do very often is back off.
I like the idea that I'm backstage being like, we got to start on time or I'm getting a text. I don't want the text.
Yeah.
That was a very fun show because Amy Schumer was a total surprise for the audience. And needless to say, not a lot of people get a surprise opener of that quality.
Caliber. Yeah. Also, a lot of times when you do those shows, you're doing 2.
Yeah, so that was the other thing, I bet. We did probably that night, 7 and 9:30. Yeah, especially with an opener. So now you got to get it going and turn it over.
Yeah. I saw you do stand-up at that theater. It's such a good theater.
It's the best.
And we talked to Gaffigan about it, too.
Yeah. Sam Morrill, I just had on my show, who's a great stand-up. He just shot his at the Beacon as well.
Well, we were talking about the Wilbur, but go ahead. Yeah, Beacon.
Oh, I meant the Wilbur. Sorry. I misspoke. He did it at the Wilbur as well in Boston.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Madison. And also, you said, unfortunately, you were in New Jersey. Well, you should check out Ocean City next summer.
This is exciting, Madison.
For the crustacean fashion show and races.
Wear a costume, dress up a hermit crab, be a queen for a day.
Be all you can be.
So tomorrow, there will be a late night show that you will be on.
Yes.
This is a reminder to everybody, if you're listening, that tomorrow evening, after the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Larry will be on the show, Hillary will be on the show, Pasha will be on the show. It's going to be a good time.
Annual tradition, and it's good. It's the best thing about holidays is that they create traditions and they keep you coming back, and it's there's sort of bullet points in the calendar to get together with your family, your friends, and someone might even make you go around the table and say what you're thankful for. And even though that might sound annoying, it's actually pretty nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We are very thankful for you and your messages and your listenership and your questions. And we will be back soon.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Gobble, 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 gobble. As a vegan, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
As a vegan, are you allowed to make the gobble noise?
Yeah, you're allowed to make it. Oh, I have a question, too, for you.
Though. You say you're allowed, but now do it.
Gobble, 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 gobble,
right,
gobble.
So you're just not allowed to do it well. Okay, what's up?
I don't know if we're going to show it on video, if they're going to cut away from you every time you try to take a sip of your smoothie through a straw, but are you new?
Yeah.
Are you new to sipping through a straw?
Oh, you mean the fact that I had a smoothie during this podcast? I was drinking a smoothie. What was I doing wrong with the straw?
It looks like you go that you stroke out a little bit every time you take a sip.
Oh, you mean like I have a stroke?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I think it is? Can I tell you what I think it is?
Yeah.
I think it's that I never drink a smoothie where I can see myself.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the Zoom box is up. So when's the last time you drank a smoothie in the mirror?
Yeah.
It's not as easy as you think, Pashy.
Yeah. Well, I would say if you don't do it, don't start now. That's you don't want to see this in yourself.
So that's fun. If you're just listening, go on YouTube and listen to my brother burning me for how I drink out of a straw. That's not going to give me a complex.
Yeah.
I have a bet. You know what? Do you think this is true that I'm bad at chewing gum?
Have
you ever made that observation?
I can't say for a fact, but because I can't. But if I don't picture you chewing gum well.
Yeah. Alexi says it's the worst thing in the world. She's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like,
I believe that. Yeah. Why are you chewing gum?
Well, we got this like new healthy gum at work, but I do the dumbest thing. So I go walk, say hi to the guests, and the gum's out. And I'm like, oh, gum. And then I immediately put like 4 pieces of gum in my mouth, and I'm like, and then I walk in to meet the guests. I'm like,
yeah,
hey.
camel style.
Real camel. Yeah, real camel chewer. All right. Happy Thanksgiving, Pashy.
Gobble, 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 gobble.